Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. And let me start off by saying I haven't completely disappeared. I had some real world things to deal with. I'm not Ninja. I don't make a living out of this. Much to my disappointment. So, gotta deal with some other things. But I am back. I've got this gameplay for you, and I've got another Apex gameplay going up later on this week. So please, do stick around. Do like, favourite and subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you as soon as possible in that video. Anyway, on to this video. This is going to be my initial early thoughts and feelings about Modern Warfare. Now, slight caveat, excuse me, slight caveat, this is going up after the 1.07 update, and I haven't yet played that patch. That being said, I've seen some of the gameplay after that patch, and some of these issues are still relevant. And in fact, I've just watched a video by Exclusive Ace, and there's actually another problem, but we'll come to that in a bit. On Exclusive Ace, he pretty much touched upon a lot of these issues in his video that he did the other day. I'll leave a link to that in my description. He's a great YouTuber. I do suggest you check him out. Anyway, on with my first initial thoughts and feelings. I'm going to start by saying this is by no means a bad game. At the core of it, I think there's a good game here. I think the bones of the game are good, and I do like the way Infinity Ward games play. Modern Warfare 3 is one of my favourite. Modern Warfare 1 was one of my favourite, and I do think I will end up liking this, assuming that they make some changes. I like the gunplay, I like the time to kill, I like the way that Infinity Ward feels, their games feel. There is a lot to like about this game, but there are some issues, and that's what I'm going to discuss today. So, getting on with the first thing, the spawns. Now, this has been mentioned by many people before, but I don't think they've mentioned it in this particular way, so this might be something new that I'm touching on here, or it's certainly something new I'm discussing. I doubt that I'm some sort of trendsetter here, but the spawn logic is terrible. Now, that's not new in itself, but the way in which spawns work do not lend themselves to fast-paced games. So traditionally in Domination, I'm talking most things here from a Domination perspective because that's the game mode I like to play the most. But in Domination, if you hold A and B, the team you're playing against predominantly spawn at C. That just doesn't happen in this game, and in this map particularly. If you hold C and B like you're holding now, the team don't spawn at A, or they don't always spawn at A. They spawn mid-map. Back at what I think it's called the office call out. Come to the call outs in a minute. That just doesn't make any sense to me, and it affects the flow of the game and the flow of the map. So that's my first gripe. Second gripe, actually this should have been my opening gambit, but anyway, I'm starting with this. I started with spawn, so I'll go to this now. But you'll see from the initial route, the initial rush, and the initial time that I bring up the scoreboard, there was only me and my boy Gweeble in the actual game, holding up our end of the bargain. We rushed to B, but there was only us 2 versus 6 people, and this happens so often. Now, I wonder if this is just a team balancing issue, whether it's a netcode issue, again, something I'll come to in a minute, but it happens fairly frequently. And on the 10v10 maps, that's an even bigger issue, because sometimes you have 2 or 3 players versus 10. It's almost like they haven't balanced the team before going into the game. So that's another issue I've got. I'm rushing through these quite quickly because this is like the 4th or 5th time I've done this video now, and I keep running out of time, or I keep getting disturbed. So that's another thing. Sort of going back to spawns a little bit, there's another issue which I don't believe has been discussed in all too much detail, but that is the problem where there's one side has a more dominant spawn over the other. Again, Hackney Yard is a prime example. If you're coming from C to B, you're in for a rough ride. There is no cover on that run-up, whereas there is plenty in the run-up from A to B. It's also, I think, shorter distance, but I could be wrong there. That's just maybe just a placebo thing. It isn't just on this map where that's an issue. It's an issue on Arkloff Peak, where you're coming from A to B. It's a nightmare. There's 3 houses that the enemy team can camp out and just catch you out of spawn. It's the same in Piccadilly. If you're coming from A to B, it's a nightmare. I think they need to adjust some of the sight lines and the spawn, almost the spawn protection in some of the maps. Talking of lines of sight and sight lines, there are 2 issues here. There are too many on the current maps, There's too much verticality in them. There's too many lines of cover to there's too many sort of sight lines to cover, and where the playstyle in this game is much more campy because of various factors which I'll come to in a second, it's impossible to cover any one angle at any given time. The headshot multiplier makes it nigh on impossible to sit there for a whole game. You shouldn't be sat there for a whole game anyway, but you know, people do, and it's a problem. Whilst we're talking of patrolling, locking down areas, etc., let's talk about the big issue in the room, and camping. Now, I don't think camping in itself is camping is the overriding problem, but there's several symptoms as a result of that, and I'm going to go over them now. So, number one, footsteps. They're universally too loud across the board. Number two, dead silence doesn't really work particularly well because A, it takes too long to charge up, and B, it only lasts for a certain amount of time. And I guess kind of C, I'd really like to see it just as a perk. Either way, I still think footsteps are way too loud. You can hear people coming from a mile off, and not only that, you can't differentiate between yourself and your teammates. So that's a problem. And if you can hear people coming from a mile off, why would you ever move? What's the incentive? So that's a problem. Also on camping, I think another problem is the minimap. It was fine in 11 other Call of Duties. There was literally no reason to change it, so I have no understanding of why Infinity Ward decided to make that change. I hope they revert it back to the original minimap. When you fire, you turn up as a red dot on the map, and if you want to stay off the map, you've got to have a suppressor, and you've got to be running Ghost. And I say and because that brings me to point 3, or the symptoms of camping. Point 3, Ghost. Ghost in Infinity Ward games has often worked like this, in that it works all of the time. I would prefer them to go to a Treyarch kind of model, whereby you have to be moving in order to affect Ghost. Now, I actually think it was a little too harsh in Treyarch's games at certain points. I'd rather see that time in which you have to move increased. But anyway, I think if you want to run Ghost, you have to be moving in order for it to work. And then lastly, symptom of camping, the call-outs. Now, I do believe that this has been changed in the new update, that some of the call-outs don't work quite as poorly as they did in the release of the game. But essentially, there's a ton of problems with call-outs. A, they actually don't help sometimes. Enemy over there is not helpful to anyone. B, sometimes you get enemy over there when the enemy's behind cover. I've noticed you can actually see, you can get that call out when people are behind cover. And the call outs being audible to the enemy team is just an absolute crazy decision. I don't know whose idea that was, but they possibly need to rethink their strategy there, because it takes away the stealth element of any gameplay when you're trying to sneak up on sniper who's been camped in a hillside for 10 minutes and you want to knife them in the back, and you suddenly scream in their ear. If they got the 7.25 shotgun, which is another problem, and they spin round and one pump you, it's so irritating. Gun balancing, that's a problem. The 7.25 is still too strong. I know there's been a patch today, but I've seen clips, it's still a problem. Lag compensation, I believe, is too strong, or what I thought was lag compensation, but I've just watched a video from Exclusive Ace again where he's discussing camera angles, and I'm wondering if that's what I'm experiencing myself. So I'll shoot somebody, I'll get them one shot, and then suddenly they'll pop up, I won't even see them, and I'll be dead. There's a problem with camera angles. I will link the vid down below so you can go and see that. Anyway, it turns out there's quite a few issues with the game that I have, but let me say, I do think there's a good game in there somewhere, so I hope a lot of these problems are reverted and we can see more content throughout the years. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me, guys. I hope you liked the video. Please stick around for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.